Welcome, guys. This is the Bears Huddle podcast. I'm Owen James, and this is all your latest Chicago Bears news from the other side of the pond. That's right, from the UK, guys. Look, is there a negative narrative against Caleb Williams in the media? Coming out of a number of sources. And look, I think even surprisingly, there are within the Chicago Bears fan base, there are, it seems, fans who want him to fail. Now, I don't get or understand why anyone would want a Bears player to fail, because if you want a Bears player who is as important as the quarterback to fail, you are effectively wanting the franchise to fail. That's certainly doesn't kind of sit well with me at all. Now, I'm not saying this is a large number of people. I think it's a minority. I think a lot of them are part of the TB17 fan club. I've certainly had a few comments on our TikTok and on our social media channels all saying that Tyson Bagent should start over Caleb Williams from the Tyson Bagent fan club, which are small but very, very vocal within the Bears fan base. Now, this narrative against Caleb Williams kind of is one that goes right from certain Bears fans, also in through the media, likes of Colin Cowherd coming out the other day and publicly criticising Caleb Williams' accuracy, or on the back of the net throwing video from Bears training camp the other day. Look, I think that is one incident. You look at the whole incident, you look at the whole picture from this training camp, and overall, head coach Ben Johnson is happy with what Caleb Williams is producing. Yes, Caleb is still making mistakes, but this is a second-year quarterback. And for someone who was supposedly, in some people's eyes, at so poor last season, who still threw for over 3,500 yards, whilst still running for his life in the vast majority of games, and getting sacked over 60 times due to being behind not only one of the worst offensive lines in Bears history, but also having probably the worst offensive coordinator in the league, telling him and calling plays with him, and no one really looking after his development. Williams, I think, has done remarkably well to survive that rookie season that he had. And look, the joke is always going to be that Chicago is the graveyard of quarterbacks. It's the city where quarterbacks go to die. I think obviously this all comes from the other day, that Caleb Williams apparently was yelling and stomping as he left Bears training camp after an individual period of training where Bears quarterbacks were engaged in a rapid-fire throwing competition aiming at targets in a net. Williams missing the net on one or two occasions. As ESPN put it, Williams' accuracy was off and his emotional reaction was caught on video by fans during practice. And it's certainly sparked a viral social media outbreak of people wanting to get onto Caleb's back and absolutely slaughter him. It does seem to be, like I said, that narrative is there. I think you've got to kind of take that Williams obviously was. The frustration from Williams is a natural part of being a quarterback, a natural part of being a leader, a natural part of wanting to be a winner. And Williams is a winner. He's a guy who wants to do well. He's a guy who wants to succeed. You can see that from the extra time he spends at Hallis Hall, from the fact that he comes in on his days off, that he comes in when he doesn't need to, that he's constantly got the iPad out, and he's not like watching the Norris Nuts or watching Mr. Beast. He is actually looking at plays and so on and so forth. Ryan Poles certainly wasn't worried or concerned after the social media firestorm of this net miss activity, and obviously the slagging off from Colin Cowherd. I mean, Colin Cowherd is a guy who seems to blow hot and cold on the Bears by the day. One day we are the greatest thing since sliced bread and contenders. The next day we are the worst team in the NFL in his eyes. So I certainly wouldn't put a lot of stock in what Colin Cowherd has to say. I think, as he's referred to by some fans, Colin Cowpat is probably closer to what we think of him. General Manager Ryan Poles did speak about Caleb post this incident. Caleb, obviously, like I said, he's young, he's talented, and Ben Johnson seems to be very optimistic about the future with him. But Ryan Poles said this: I actually think it's pretty cool. I knew there was a bad practice. I've seen clips on Twitter. I didn't know that it was a national crisis on Caleb struggling. Certainly making a joke out of the whole incident. I think you've got to kind of place a lot of what's happening at training camp around Caleb and around the Bears offense in the fact that they are trying an install, they are trying to rapidly change the system, they are trying to massively change how we line up, how we play as an offense. Last year the offense was absolutely awful due to the complete, ineptitude of Coach Eberflus and obviously Shane Waldron in his time. the offense was a joke. It was an absolute joke. And obviously Ben Johnson, who is one of the most offensive-minded head coaches in the game, someone who has been likened to Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, is trying to install a completely new system, trying to put in a whole new system of plays, ways of behaving, ways of playing, change of attitude, change of mentality. And it's a lot for a guy to take on. And Caleb obviously will have some teething problems, as everyone will, with this new offense. They've installed a lot now. That was when Caleb Williams was asked about what the coaches, what Declan Doyle, what Ben Johnson had done as regards the new offense. Caleb commented this. He said, "They've installed a lot." Williams said, "I take pride in trying to retain it all, every single detail that we have. I think that's where I've been growing so far since Ben's been here, is retaining all the information. All of it makes sense to me, and being able to go out there and execute. Obviously, there's going to be mistakes, but being able to understand that it was a mistake by me, or we lined up wrong, whatever the case may be, getting back in the huddle, calling it right, getting back out there, doing it, executing, being a player-led team. That's what is important." So, look, Caleb is still obviously young, still learning his trade. He is developing, and that kind of goes on the other side of what is coming out from Bears training camp in terms of what Coach Johnson is saying, what Coach Doyle is saying, what Roma Dunze is saying. And certainly, I think the problem with the media when it comes to Caleb, and I think there is very much a narrative against him from some within the media, is that when he has a bad day or he makes a mistake, it gets blown up into a national crisis. It gets blown up into a Contra style, Iran Gate, Watergate style crisis because it's Caleb Williams. I think, for me, the days that we have where we have him playing exceptionally well, where he is absolutely excellent, they get lost because they're not news stories, they're not media worthy, because they don't suit the narrative that has been sowed by the media. Roma Dunze and Caleb Williams and Colston Loveland as well certainly seem to be developing an outstanding partnership. That is what is coming out as well of Bears training camp, something that is not obviously as widely reported because it is not as sensationalism and is not as clickbaity as Williams is sucking, Williams is failing, ditch Williams now, getting Tyson Bagent. That is obviously trying to conjure this quarterback crisis in Chicago, which the media would love. Now, we know that obviously Roma Dunze and Caleb Williams were both first-round picks, and the hope was always that they would develop together, that they would learn together, and they would come obviously as a pair and obviously develop this very close understanding. Roma Dunze spoke post-training session about Caleb Williams to Jeremy Fowler. He spoke about the fact that he is developing a very clear sort of understanding of Caleb Williams, and almost a telepathic understanding at times. He talked about the fact that obviously Caleb Williams is obviously developing, he's improving, he's not obviously the best quarterback in the NFL at this moment in time, and he may be in the long run. He's still only in his second year. Roma Dunze said he's far away from that right now. Ben Johnson has been relentless on him with the details. They're just trying to get him to do the basics right now, and the work on the off-scripted plays, the mobility, all his strength, that will come. Chicago Bears elite quarterback play seems to be an oxymoron. As far as the ability of Williams, they see it, and the players recognise it. We've just got to get the best out of him. And I think there's a development there to be undertaken. There is an improvement there still to make, and it's effectively like Caleb Williams has been put back to his rookie year, that he's relearning everything, that he's starting again from scratch, that last year did not count. And Ben Johnson obviously has criticised him at times, which he will do as the head coach. He spoke about the 3 delay of game penalties the other day. He spoke about the fact that if that was a game situation, they would have lost the game. And if we keep doing that, we will lose games. So there's clearly a drive from Coach Johnson to get the best out of him. But I think we've got to kind of remember where we are and where we're at with this team in terms of it's the install, it's bringing in a new system, it's developing a new system, it's developing a more aggressive smash mouth system that Ben Johnson wants to bring in. And Caleb is still learning. He's a second-year quarterback. He's not a veteran. He's not Jim McMahon. He's not Joe Montana. He's not Steve Young. He's not Tom Brady. He's not Peyton Manning. He's a second-year quarterback who is learning the game still. And I think the narrative against him needs to change. And hopefully the Bears fans will continue to support Caleb Williams into this second season. Obviously, if the season goes badly and he doesn't perform, then a conversation needs to be had. But at this moment in time, he will be QB1. He will be the starting quarterback. on Monday night, on the first Monday night football game against the Minnesota Vikings. It will not be Tyson Bagent as much as the TB17 crowd may want it. So we've just got to get behind Williams, back him, and give him the best possible opportunities to succeed. Guys, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Thanks for watching the Bears Huddle podcast. As always, guys, bear down.